好了，终于2分钟，所有人都在叫，要命了！就刚刚5分钟前头，叫也没几个了，现在突然之间，所有人都叫了，要死！
Reflecting public fear in China, Shanghai is witnessing a large escape tide from the COVID lockdown, and young people are shouting to the officials, quote, "We are the last generation," end quote, on their way out. Shanghai authorities announced on May 16th that they have 15 city districts basically at the social COVID cleared level. However, the lockup tells a different story, getting even more severe. Taking the chance of 2 relaxation days, people strived their best to escape Shanghai. Social media video show people lined up walking to Hongqiao Station to catch the high-speed train, and the lines stretched for miles. To access the train, passengers must verify the same-day ticket, the nucleic acid negative certificate within 48 hours, the antigen test report within 24 hours, or the nucleic acid negative certificate within 24 hours. According to a Dajiyuan news interview, Mr. Zhou, a Shanghai local, said the ruling party prevented people from fleeing, as the escape door was closed again. Mr. Zhou said they did not trust the authorities' promise to end the lockdown, so just wait and see. They will keep jailing people for the whole year. The blockade got worse, and there were reports of big whites, COVID enforcers breaking into people's homes to spray disinfectant liquid, beating people, and putting them into isolation jails for little to no reason. Mr. Zhou said that the COVID enforcers in white hazmat suits were very cruel to the people of Shanghai. This behavior happened during the Cultural Revolution, but it is horrifying to see it happening again in the 21st century. Mr. Chen, who lives in Shanghai, said that the authority would set up, quote, military platoons for legal struggles, end quote, in different places. As a result, Mr. Chen is worried that, quote, mass fighting against the masses, end quote, may happen again in China. Recently, passports got cut off by customs border officials. No one was allowed to travel outside China. No one was allowed to farm the land, and more people were forced to dwell in tiny spaces. A shortage of food is the next step in living frugally. Quote, our generation may encounter this disaster, end quote, Mr. Chen added. A video started a heated argument last week. The police tried to force a couple to go somewhere, threatening, quote, if you are punished by the public security, it will affect your 3 generations, end quote. The couple replied, quote, this is our last generation, thank you, end quote. This is our last generation is a phrase everyone can relate to.
And apparently they're like, because they've been like spraying down like the streets. They've got like drones just spraying just random areas. And apparently they think like, what if we get rid of everything, including the people, but also like all the food, everything, literally everything. Get rid of all things in China, then maybe they can get the COVIDs to 0. And that's basically what they're doing. Pet. This can help with making the person unable to go anywhere with COVID. A very useful Chinese method. This isn't getting too much to be like a dystopian Asian, Chinese or Korean nightmare movie. But they're doing the same things in China though, because there is no COVID, so no one's dying from the COVID. So just like everywhere, all the nurses are bored, so they get on TikTok to do their dances. So here's the Chinese TikTok dancing nurses, but this is Chinese style. But here's where it gets totally insane. The Chinese government's saying no one can actually farm, because if you farm, you risk getting the COVIDs, because the COVIDs is everywhere. So they've actually been putting like these robot things into fields to make sure no one farms. You gotta love nature though. You got like two birds, they're like, yeah, we don't care about your stupid machine, we'll just sit on it. But stupid humans are like, okay, well the government says we can't farm. Well, do you guys remember what happened there? Like, what was it, like 40, 50 years ago? Maybe longer, where Mao starved to death almost everyone in China? They're doing it again in broad daylight. Like, it's amazing. So they're actually gonna try to starve to death everyone in China now. It's insane. There's not really gonna be hardly any food in most places in 6 months. And no one has any idea. It's amazing.
We'll start with an edition of the Yale Daily News, specifically number 96 from February 29th, 1972, that is available for reading online on the Yale Library, digital library. And it contains a front page story, a very interesting one, called Yale Group Spurs Mao's Emergence. And it states William F. Buckley was not the only Yale figure connected with the presidential trip to China, of course referring to the then recent trip to China of President Nixon. Without Yale's support, Mao Zedong may have never risen from obscurity to command China. Jonathan Spence, professor of Chinese history, was the first to discover Mao Zedong's connection with Yale. The professor noted, in 1919, Mao, age 26, was in Changsha, having finished his middle school education. He visited Peking, and while there, received his serious introduction to communist theory in Li Tachao's Marxist study group. Now, if he was to develop a reputation in socialist circles, he had to find a forum to propagate his views. At this crucial point, the Student Union of Yale and China invited Mao to take over the editorship of their journal. Mao accepted the position and changed the format of the student magazine. It would now deal with social criticism and current problems and focus on thought reorientation.
Thinking big by thinking small. How significantly downsizing our homes into tiny homes with all but the bare essentials is the key to building a better, more diverse, and less racist society. Thanks, Satan Claus, with your Fourth Reich Industrial Revolution. Well, they're already coming out with all this stuff. Like, if you live in San Fran shithole, you're an idiot. But people are starting to live in pods there, and they're probably like charging them like hundreds of thousands of dollars for a little pod in like a shared with 40 other people. And then you walk outside and everyone's like shooting up drugs and shitting on the ground. That's quite the place. A California startup is offering cocoon-like pods to allow 14 residents to share a single house as an escape from soaring rents and real estate prices. That sounds pretty good. Just, you know, get away from all their systems, get out of places like the US and Canada, obviously, and Australia. It's going to be brutally bad. China, obviously, if you can. And, you know, get to places more like Mexico and stuff where they really haven't done anything like this. And the government really isn't in control of anything, which is perfect. If you're going to have a government, that's the way it should be. But if you're smart, you can get around all this stuff. But you also might have to like get involved in a revolution.